So, right now in the Middle East, the physical battles playing out in the sky are, well, they're being matched by a massive, really aggressive battle over the narrative.
Absolutely.
And welcome, by the way. Thank you for joining us for today's deep dive. We're going to be looking at a geopolitical crisis that is just moving at an unprecedented velocity.
It really is.
Yeah. And to cut through this, this fog of war, we're pulling from a brand new compilation published just today, March 4th, 2026. It's from a Patreon publication called KULTE.
Right, and they've synthesized a ton of reporting here.
Exactly. They brought together reporting from Middle East Eye, Reuters, Tasnim, and Al Jazeera. And our mission for this deep dive is to be your guide through all of this. Because since the February 28th joint offensive by the United States and Israel against Iran, the sheer volume of metal in the air is staggering.
Staggering. But before we get into the tactical data and, all these competing narratives, I need to step in and establish a really firm boundary for you, the listener. The intelligence and the reporting we're analyzing today involves highly sensitive, active military operations and deeply polarized political claims.
Yeah, including some really controversial stuff from commentators like Tucker Carlson.
Right. So we are taking absolutely no sides here. We do not endorse any of the military actions, the defensive postures, or the political viewpoints discussed by any party. Our role is strictly and impartially to act as a lens. We are reporting the claims and the data exactly as they appear in the source material, just so you can understand the architecture of this conflict.
Impartiality is essential. Because, frankly, the claims coming out right now are completely contradictory.
They are all over the place.
Yeah. So, to understand the stakes, we have to look at the immediate aftermath of that February 28th U.S.-Israeli offensive. We're suddenly seeing global energy infrastructure in the Arab Gulf states taking direct hits.
And an intense war of words has erupted over who is actually pulling the trigger.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because Middle East Eye is reporting that Iranian officials are aggressively pushing a false flag narrative.
A very deliberate one.
Right. They are accusing Israel of launching drone attacks on energy and civilian targets in these Gulf states. And they're saying it's specifically to frame Tehran and drag the Arab nations into the broader conflict.
Which is a highly calculated diplomatic maneuver. When you look at the specific physical targets involved, the stakes become incredibly clear.
Saudi Aramco, right?
Yes. Saudi Aramco's Ras Tunura refinery suffered a fire and actually had to undergo a temporary shutdown. And just for context on the scale here, the data shows this is a 550,000 barrel per day facility.
Wow.
Yeah. Taking that kind of capacity offline, even briefly, sends shockwaves through energy markets.
And it wasn't just Aramco. The reporting also highlights drone strikes on the Omani ports of Duqm and Salah.
Right. And what's fascinating here is Iran's response. It hasn't just been a standard, press release denial. It's been a highly coordinated pushback across multiple state and semi-official channels.
Iran's deputy foreign minister categorically denied the Aramco attack.
While this semi-official Tasnim news agency cited military sources claiming the Aramco strike was explicitly an Israeli operation, they're saying it was meant to distract from the damage inflicted inside Iran.
The rhetoric from Tehran really reflects that strategy. The Iranian military command issued a statement calling the attacks on Muslim nations a desperate act by the U.S. and Israel.
They're laying it on thick.
They really are. And then you have Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Esmail Baghai explicitly warning that Israel will try to widen the fire's reach and conduct regional sabotage.
Exactly. He's essentially telling neighboring governments not to trust their own radar telemetry.
Or the debris falling in their own backyards.
Right. Baghai's statement is designed to inject doubt into the intelligence assessments of those Gulf nations. If you can convince a neighboring country that a third party is manipulating the battlefield, you might delay their entry into the conflict.
Or at least blunt their diplomatic response.
Yeah.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because this strategy of injecting doubt isn't just happening through official diplomatic channels, it is bleeding rapidly into the international media ecosystem.
Creating a whole secondary battleground of unverified rumors.
Yes. The compilation tracks how this narrative warfare intersected with U.S. media. Specifically, it points to unverified claims made by the commentator Tucker Carlson.
Which blew up instantly.
Oh, completely. He went on his program and stated that Saudi Arabia and Qatar had arrested Israeli Mossad agents who were allegedly planning attacks within those countries.
And the injection of that claim into the public sphere forced an immediate diplomatic response.
They had to address it right away.
They did. You had Qatari Foreign Ministry spokesman Majid al-Ansari going on Al Jazeera to publicly and flatly deny the assertion.
Flatly denied it.
He stated there is no information about Mossad cells operating in the country.
But the reality on the ground in Qatar presents this massive plot twist. They definitively shut down the rumor about Mossad agents, but simultaneously announced they had arrested 10 suspects.
Right.
And these suspects were linked to 2 Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps cells, 2 IRGC cells.
And the charges weren't minor.
No, they were for espionage and sabotage. That completely flips the narrative. They are actively managing a covert Iranian threat while publicly having to deny an Israeli one.
This raises an important question about how quickly narratives can become weaponized in modern conflicts.
Oh, so?
Well, the source material is very clear. Israel's covert role in any of these Gulf infrastructure attacks remains entirely unverified.
Right.
But on the flip side, Tehran's insistence that these are false flags has been outright rejected or just left completely unconfirmed by the targeted Gulf states themselves. The arrest of those IRGC-linked cells in Qatar suggests that while the Gulf states are navigating this maze of public misinformation,
Their internal security is finding real threats.
exactly, their internal security apparatus is identifying very real, tangible threats from Iran.
Which transitions us from the covert intelligence war to the undeniable kinetic reality in the skies. Because despite Iran's denials regarding the Gulf energy targets, they were openly taking credit for a massive regional offensive against the U.S.-Israeli coalition.
And the numbers the IRGC is claiming are staggering.
The IRGC reported targeting more than 500 U.S. and Israeli sites.
500 sites.
And they used a swarm of 700 drones and hundreds of missiles.
The logistical coordination required to launch 700 drones and hundreds of missiles simultaneously across multiple vectors is immense. But when we look at the defense data compiled by Reuters, the picture becomes even more severe.
What did the defense data show?
The United Arab Emirates alone detected 812 Iranian drones.
Over 800.
Yes, 812 drones and 186 ballistic missiles.
Wait, so there's a huge discrepancy there. Iran claims 700 drones total, but the UAE alone tracked 812.
Precisely. That discrepancy suggests the airspace is entirely saturated, potentially with varying types of loitering munitions, decoys, and actual strike assets.
Tracking 812 inbound hostile drones over a single nation's airspace is a nightmare scenario for any air defense grid.
They're overwhelming.
And yet, the interception data coming out of Qatar is genuinely remarkable. According to the data, Qatar detected 101 ballistic missiles.
Right.
And they successfully stopped 98 of them.
Which is incredible.
A 97% interception rate against ballistic targets. That requires a highly integrated, incredibly expensive defense architecture.
It does. Intercepting a ballistic missile is fundamentally different from shooting down a slow-moving drone. It requires advanced radar tracking, rapid computational solutions, and exo-atmospheric or high-altitude kinetic kill vehicles.
It's basically hitting a bullet with a bullet.
Exactly. The fact that Qatar managed to intercept 98 out of 101 shows the capability of their defensive shield. But it also underscores the sheer exhaustion of resources taking place. Every one of those interceptors fired represents a massive financial and logistical expenditure.
And despite Iran's diplomatic efforts to push the false flag narrative we talked about earlier, this physical barrage has completely unified the Gulf states against Tehran.
The consensus is absolute.
The Gulf states aren't buying the idea of an Israeli diversion. The reporting notes that the Gulf states, alongside the United States and several allies, issued a joint statement specifically condemning Iran.
And they didn't mince words.
Not at all. They described the attacks as indiscriminate and reckless.
That joint statement is critical because it represents a total failure of Iran's diplomatic counter-narrative. The Gulf states have access to their own telemetry, their own early warning systems, and their own intelligence on the ground.
They see what's in the sky.
Exactly. By formally attributing the broader wave of attacks to Iran and labeling them reckless, the Gulf Coalition is signaling that the kinetic reality has overridden any attempts at narrative manipulation.
So what does this all mean? We have a situation where diplomatic ties are severing, the airspace is saturated with hundreds of drones and missiles, and the intelligence community is battling espionage and sabotage.
It's a powder keg.
But for you, the listener, analyzing this from the outside, the most critical element is how this regional saturation translates into an immediate global economic crisis. The ripple effects on the energy markets are not theoretical. They are already in motion.
The economic disruption outlined in the source material is severe and immediate. Qatar Energy, which is one of the pillars of the global energy supply, was forced to suspend all liquefied natural gas production.
All of it.
All of it. And this wasn't a precautionary measure. It was a direct result of 2 Iranian drones striking facilities in Ras Laffan and Misaid.
Suspending all LNG production from a major supplier doesn't just impact regional markets. It forces Europe and Asia to instantly scramble for alternative, likely much more expensive energy sources.
It disrupts the entire global grid.
But even that massive disruption pales in comparison to the ultimate escalation detailed in the reporting.
Right, the choke point.
The IRGC has officially declared the Strait of Hormuz closed.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the Strait of Hormuz closure is the nightmare scenario for global logistics. Declaring it closed changes the entire risk calculus for global shipping.
And the IRGC isn't just setting up a naval blockade.
No.
The text details an explicit threat from them to set fire to any vessel attempting to pass through.
Which is terrifying.
Threatening to set fire to transiting vessels shifts the dynamic from a geopolitical standoff to a direct kinetic threat against civilian supply lines.
You are looking at a scenario where insurance premiums for shipping will skyrocket. Vessels will have to reroute thousands of miles.
And the global supply of oil will face an immediate artificial bottleneck.
Exactly. It fundamentally transforms the conflict. A physical strike on a refinery can be repaired, and a drone swarm can be intercepted.
Like we saw in Qatar.
Right. But closing the Strait of Hormuz with the threat of indiscriminate attacks on commercial hulls, that weaponizes the geography of the region against the entire global economy. It ensures that the consequences of this U.S.-Israeli-Iranian conflict are felt at every gas pump and in every supply chain worldwide.
It really paints a stark picture of modern warfare.
Yeah.
On one side of the ledger, you have the raw kinetic power. 812 drones detected over the UAE. 98 ballistic missiles intercepted over Qatar. Strikes on massive refineries and the suspension of critical LNG production.
The physical reality.
Yes.
Yeah.
But inextricably linked to that physical destruction is the chaotic information war. False flag accusations regarding Omani ports, high-level diplomatic denials of media rumors, and the quiet arrests of sabotage cells.
Which brings us to a critical realization about the intersection of these two battlefields.
What's that?
Think about this. If a single regional conflict can simultaneously trigger the closure of a vital global shipping lane like the Strait of Hormuz, while generating a blizzard of unverified rumors that actively manipulate international diplomacy in real time, then consider how the future of global energy security might permanently shift.
That's a huge thought.
Nations might soon find themselves forced to completely decouple their economies from these volatile choke points, and the catalyst won't solely be the threat of physical military strikes.
It's the information.
Exactly. The true catalyst is the speed of information warfare. When a crisis hits, the fog of war descends so rapidly and the accusations fly so fast that it becomes nearly impossible for global markets to know who is actually attacking the supply chain until it is far too late to protect it.
That is a fundamental shift in how we have to view global stability. It is no longer just about having the radar capable of tracking the drone. It's about having the resilience to survive the economic panic caused by the narrative surrounding the drone.
Precisely.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. As always, keep questioning the information you consume, look closely at the data behind the headlines, and we will catch you next time.